Okay, good afternoon, everyone. And let me start by saying welcome to everyone here in the room and everyone who's joining us via Zoom. Thank you for giving us your time. Let me introduce myself. I'm Safaralian. I'm a math faculty and chair of mathematics department. And here is my wonderful colleague.
My name is Professor Fallstrom. I'm the faculty director of the STEM Learning Centers. If you've been to us at all for any of your math or science courses, we did have to relocate because of construction. If you look and see the library right now, you can look right through the library because everything's broken down with it. So we'll have a new one here in about a year, maybe about a year and a half.
That's what they say.
That's what they say.
Let me just briefly tell you a background about this workshop. I started this workshop in about 2014 when I worked with another colleague to put the material together in order to get the information that I'm sharing with you today. We had to research online, going to other math anxiety and success in math workshops in other colleges, and some research on our own to put these material together. Over the years since 2014, the concept and material has evolved a lot. So this is the new one that we are offering you today. And also, before we start, as we introduce ourselves, we want to ask you to introduce yourself. When you introduce yourself, you can go just by your first name, but please let us know if you are taking a math class right now and what modality that is. Is it online? Is it in person? Or if you are not taking any math class before, you can say last semester I took a class, or I'm planning to take a math class next semester. So let's start here.
My name is Cruz. I'm taking Math 126 right now.
In person?
Yes.
Thank you, Cruz.
My name's Kyle. I'm taking Math 131 and it's online.
Math 131 online. Thank you.
I go by Ziv. I'm not taking one, but I did that on a little later.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Frankie, I was taking Math 260, but I dropped it. But I'm also taking Math 115.
Math 115?
Yeah, I'm going to take 260 next.
And 115 is in person?
Yes, they're all of my classes are in person.
Thank you. Yes.
My name is William. I actually just transferred from ASL, and so I was taking math classes online with them, and planning on taking my next math class next semester.
Next semester. Thank you.
Yes. My name is Jessica. I'm taking 265 in person.
265 in person. Thank you.
My name is Melina, and I took linear algebra last semester in person.
In person. So let's go to Zoom. I see the first person, Jocelyn. Jocelyn, can you hear us?
If you want, I can have them put their name and the class.
You can just put it in the chat. So if you can put your name and the class you're taking and the modality, is that in person or online or in Zoom, you can just put that. And Professor Fallstrom is putting the instruction in the chat. And if any of you want to just unmute yourself and introduce yourself, that would be great.
Thank you, Jocelyn.
Jocelyn, Math 126 in person. Viridiana, Math 131 online. Wow, they are going really fast. Brandon, Math 131 online. Go ahead, Scott, if you can catch up with that.
Want me to do that? Sure. Looks like JC 126 in person. And Grace Joy 131 online. We've got Raphael taking 126 online, second time. All right, I hear you. Brandon 131 online, Grace 131 online, Darian 131 online. It's almost like a teacher of 131 online said you should show up. I think maybe. Okay. Maybe. Colton, Adrian, Alexander, Jennifer, all of those are 131 online at this point. So,
perfect. Thank you.
B is 126 in person.
And I see Professor Beltran Aguilar and Professor Mercado also attending in Zoom. Hi, we see you. Thank you. Thank you. That's great. I see so many students that they are taking classes online. So the good thing is we have a few tips for taking classes online. So stay tuned. So let's move to the next slide. So let me tell you that just last semester, last week, remember last week was the spring break? but I was attending a conference last week and there were so many workshops and presentations. One of them was completely in PowerPoint. And before attending this workshop, they told us that this is very extremely important workshop. Make sure that you're taking notes. So I had my notebook in front of me to take notes. And then I saw a PowerPoint full of very fine print. And this is in ballroom. We can barely see anything. And the presenter said, these 4 things that you see are extremely important, that they are going to be the foundation for the rest of this presentation. And of course, we cannot see anything. So me and my colleagues here, we were saying that, well, we can't see, what are these 4 important things that we cannot see that is going to be the foundation? So the point is that I'm not going to read from the PowerPoint. I really don't like to just put the PowerPoint and read from that. So this is going to be very interactive. From here, you can just call out anything that stands out to you. And we are asking the same thing from the students in Zoom. And that would be possible, Scott.
That's possible.
Yes, you can just unmute yourself and tell us that, okay, what does math anxiety look like? When you think about math anxiety, what does something that you say, oh, yeah, I have experienced that. Anything from the slide or anything that you want to add? Yes.
Afraid to ask a question in class.
Oh, okay.
I'm embarrassed that I should already know this.
I have heard that a lot, that my students start asking questions by saying that I have a stupid question. There is no such a thing as a stupid question, right? We are here in the classroom to learn together. So we have to be comfortable to ask questions. What else? Just call it out from the slide or anything that you can relate to that.
Alex says, when I go home, it's like I was never there. And that's why I'm here.
Yes.
Good point, Alex.
Yeah, sometimes when you are in the classroom, everything makes sense. But then when you try to do the homework, you say, yeah, I got everything in the class, but now I'm not able to do the homework. Yeah, I can see that. Yes, I've heard that from my students. Anything else? Yes. Yeah, imposter syndrome. Talk about it.
So it's like when you feel like you're not meant to, or like not meant to be here because it's more advanced than you, and you being here, it's making you feel like impossible.
Yeah, and then sometimes when your classmate, they answer any questions that the professor asks, then that adds to that anxiety. Can everyone from the Zoom hear us well as we have this conversation here?
Just use a little thumbs up button if you're
Yeah.
hearing us okay, just to make sure. that
This
the
is
sound-
a high flex classroom. We just want to make sure that everyone can hear us well.
Yeah, thumbs
Okay.
up, thumbs up, thumbs up.
Yeah,
I got a
so
couple others. Colton says, oftentimes I'll do well on the homework and understand what I'm studying, but on the test, I kind of make stupid mistakes. So
we have also some tips for test taking, so stay tuned. Okay, let's move on.
And Leila, I think these slides, just in case you're trying to take pictures of them or screenshots or anything like that, we will be sending the slides to Melina to be posted afterwards.
Yes, and this is also recorded, so Melina is going to post it in.
Discord and Blogger.
Okay, and just a reminder to everyone that there is a Google Doc posted in the chat. So Melina, make sure to repost it again so everyone can sign in so they can get credit if there is any credit. So there are many different definitions of math anxiety. One that it's on here. By the way, if you are giving us direct messaging, everyone can see that. So Scott, do you want to?
Minimize that.
Yes,
There we
we
go.
just close that. Thank you. So this definition of math anxiety that we chose for this workshop is that the feeling of fear, apprehension, or dread that many people experience when they are in the situations that require solving math problems. This is by Maloney et al. From 2014. So what does it look like? For now, some of you talked about it. You mentioned that I'm in the class And I'm afraid to ask questions. Maybe I don't belong here. Maybe I had a bad experience, a negative experience previously, perhaps in high school or previous math class. So now I'm afraid to be in this classroom. What if I fail like I failed the previous math class? I got a C in the previous math class, so I'm not very comfortable to be in this class. I learned not much in the previous class. I don't trust myself to move to the next class. All this negative self-talk will create anxiety. And many of us, we avoid taking math classes and we push it to the end of our education journey. Many times we take all our GE classes and then keep our math classes for the end. That is not a good practice. For any of you who meet with the counselors, they also tell you that's not a good practice. We have to take our math classes early on and give us room to have more experience with our math classes to build the mathematical knowledge. And then poor preparation. Of course, we have the Math Learning Center. When I was a student, I was living in Math Learning Center, to be honest with you. I was a student at Palomar College. After every class, I was going to the Math Learning Center. I knew that I don't have any help at home, so I have to do my homework there. And it was extremely helpful. But it prepared me for what is coming up. And of course, if we are not prepared in a effective way, then we are not ready for our exams. So again, these are things that we are going to discuss in today's workshop. But then this is a cycle that is going to repeat. Negative self-talk, I'm afraid, math anxiety, so I'm not doing a good job preparing myself, and then poor performance.
Say one quick thing.
Absolutely.
So if you look at this cycle, though, some of it is a little bit perhaps outside of your control, but a lot of it is within your control. For example, if you had a bad math experience, that may be something in your mind, you're like, I really couldn't control that. I had to take this class, I had to take this teacher, it didn't work well with me, I didn't have a great experience. But then afterwards, the piece that says, okay, well, I'm going to avoid math entirely. Well, now you're taking more time away from math. It's going to be harder for you to remember because you've taken more time away. You avoid it. If you're not doing your homework, if you're not doing any math during the time, right? Now you're not prepared at all. Guess what? Then the cycle repeats, because if you have a poor math performance, you've been there, right? You get a test back, it's not the grade you want. It doesn't make you feel great. It doesn't make you feel confident. It doesn't build your desire to do more. So there's parts of this that we're going to talk about today that are kind of, where can you say, okay, I got to break the cycle somewhere? Because if not, it's just going to keep spinning. I'll turn it back to you.
And I've heard that from students many times, that I choose my major based on the math classes that I have to take, because I want to avoid math classes. I see you're agreeing.
Oh, no. Actually, no, I don't, but I'm agreeing with a lot of the good stuff you're saying, because this semester math chapter, I took calculus 3, which there was the first test was after 2 weeks. I'm not joking, I'm serious. And I studied all weekend nonstop. And like I was really trying hard to like not fail, and I failed. I got 44. So I was like, you know what, screw this, I'm dropping.
But did you mention that you studied during the weekend, just the weekend before?
Yeah, the whole weekend. Like that was a lot. That following that was a lot of negatives. A lot.
Yeah. So
That class was not good.
okay, so when we get to the slide, I have something to share with you.
Yeah.
Specifically what you mentioned. Okay. Causes of math anxiety. Can you relate to any of this? If you do, please call them out.
Fear of failure,
Fear of failure, pressure.
Just having the clock ticking down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, I know it, but it's the clock. Makes you feel like you don't. Okay.
I joined the military after high school, so it was 6 years between my math classes. So I did really good in high school, and then I came in not knowing anything anymore, and it took a while to start coming back. So I was just really lost for quite a while.
Yeah.
You have a lot of people like that, some time away, whether it's military or family or something that comes up. Life sometimes gets in the way. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, math
Yes.
126 is the first class that.
Let's step into the deep end of the pool, right?
Yes, and we also talked about the negative self-talk, negative past experience in math classes that we are afraid that perhaps it's going to happen again. Fear of public embarrassment. One of you told me I was afraid to ask questions in class. So these are some causes of math anxiety. We can. Some psychological symptom of anxiety. The next slide. Can you relate to any of these? Call them out. We just talked about feeling of failures, right?
The negative self-talk one speaks to me, not just in math, but in life in general. But shoot, I forgot what was it. Well, yeah, a lot of times in any class, not just math, I end up discovering that I should have studied more, and I end up just not really believing myself, but just feel like I'm criticizing myself. Even if I tried, maybe I tried to do it, but I couldn't. But still, I just feel like, oh, I wish I could go back and so I
Want
could give
another
myself
shot at
more
that.
time.
Yeah.
Even though I that's exactly what I tried to do, is use up the time wisely, which I could not do.
Negative,
It'd be hard to
okay,
do.
negative self-talk. Anything else that stands out to you and you can relate to that?
Darian mentioned online the kind of extreme tension and nervousness really kind of focused around the testing time periods.
And of course, you know, we have limited time to take tests, right?
Colton and Alex both mentioned the kind of that inability to recall material. Maybe that anxiety pops up and all of a sudden, even though 10 minutes before you were good with it, all of a sudden it disappears.
Okay. How about some physical symptoms of anxiety? Can you relate to any of these? Dry mouth, headache, heartbeat, muscle tension, anything else that stands out to you? Cold sweat,
Something to get
headache, okay.
Adrian says kind of the shakiness. Hands start shaking a little bit when you gotta hold the pencil to write the test answers down and it feels like you're jittery.
Can you think of any other time that you have these symptoms or some of them? Not about the math anxiety. Another experience that creates some of these symptoms. Yes.
Yeah, like I feel fear.
Okay, fear.
I have like similar symptoms.
I like public speaking.
Okay,
Yeah.
That's anxiety of
Adrian said the same online.
Heartbreak is one.
After
Heartbreak?
Yeah.
okay. I was thinking about love. When you're in love, you experience some of these symptoms. So maybe you're in love with math and you don't know, right? That could be a possibility. That could be a possibility that is a love that we don't know.
I mean, I do love math, in spite of how difficult it can be sometimes.
There you go. Thank you.
It's like a child. They can be difficult, like
Yeah, I can see from the chat before an interview, test anxiety. Yeah, before an interview, I still remember that feeling. Yes.
It's a
love-hate relationship.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you, Adrian. All right.
What can we do about it? So in this workshop, we are trying to, first of all, we talked about these things, some of these symptoms. So we are going to learn how our brain learns and remembers. I think that is very important information that we can have in order to help ourselves how to study, how long to study, and so on. We talk about the test taking strategies, what we do before the test, during the test, after the test, and then how to manage our anxiety overall. And we also talk about study cycle, that is extremely important. So every human being is born with about 200 billion neurons. These neurons are the brain cells. So as we talk about something, practice something, write about something, we grow dendrites. That's how we learn. What are these dendrites? These branch-looking things that you see, These are dendrites. Learning is equal to growing dendrite. Just click one more time, Scott. One more time and one more time. Yes. So remember, learning means growing dendrite. Without growing dendrite, we haven't learned anything. That's the biology behind the learning. That's the science behind learning. So it's not like I open my math book, I look at it, and I have a head full of dendrites. It takes time to grow dendrites, right? It takes time to grow dendrites. And at the beginning, when we learn about something, we have a very fragile dendrites. We have to take care of it. We have to practice in order to have thicker and stronger dendrites. If we go to the next slide. So let's say today some of you mentioned that you are in Math 126. Many of you mentioned you're in Math 131 online. Let's say we are talking about something like quadratic formula, okay? So when you hear quadratic formula, what do you remember that formula right now? Okay. Yeah, so see, some people, yes, some people say yes, and some people say, no, I'm not sure. So those who say yes, they have practiced and they have used the quadratic formula. So they have a dendrite, strong dendrite for quadratic formula. Versus perhaps you have heard of quadratic formula at some point. You said you are coming back after about 6 years. So at some point you learned about it, but you didn't practice it. So that dendrite now is dead. That means when you practice again, it's gonna come back. You're gonna grow new dendrites for quadratic formula. So sometimes you're sitting next to your classmate in the classroom and you notice that any question that the professor asks, your classmate, the person next to you know the answer. And you're thinking, we're in the same class. Wait a minute, we're in the same class. How come she knows everything and I don't know? She, at some point, studied that, practiced that. So she has a dendrite for that subject. You are going to grow dendrite. You haven't learned yet. You are going to learn it. You are going to learn it. You are going to practice, and you are going to have a strong dendrite. Usually when my students learn the classroom, I always tell them, may your dendrite be with you. Because when they are in the class, I'm sure they grew dendrite. But remember, when we grow dendrite, at the beginning it's fragile, right? We have to practice to make sure we have a strong coat of myelin to create that around our dendrite so we can protect our dendrite. Remember many years ago when we were all trying to memorize the multiplication table. Was it easy at the beginning? No. But we have practiced it and we have used it for many years that now we don't even think about it, just come to us. Remember when we were learning how to learn how to bike riding, right? Was it easy at the beginning? No, we failed, we got up, we tried again, we got up. But now we just go on our bike and we just go. We don't think about it, right? Or driving. Oh my God, I had the hardest time with my daughter. Sorry to put you on spot. But now I just don't want to drive. I just sit there and I trust her because she now has a good dendrite for driving. So at the beginning, when we learn a subject, we have to give ourselves a good amount of time by practicing, reviewing, doing our homework to learn about that subject. So the next slide actually give us the information. What would be this number? How much I have to practice. So when we see a new subject, a new concept, let's say you go to a math class, you learn about, we just talked about the quadratic formula. You hear about quadratic formula, you learn about it, you and your classmate worked on a few problems related to application of quadratic formula. You were able to do that, okay. You leave the classroom, after 20 minutes, you remember only 60%. Okay. Within 24 hours, you remember 30%. So what should I do? This is the science, this is the biology behind learning. What should I do to fight that? After I leave the classroom, I need to go to the Math Learning Center, start doing my homework, arrange for the group study. So practice, practice, practice. Practicing is going to help me to grow dendrite, make a stronger dendrite, and protect my dendrites. Usually the classes are Monday, Wednesday, or Tuesday, Thursday, or for online. We have to talk about online separately. So let's say your class is Tuesday, Thursday. You leave the class on Thursday. When you come back next Tuesday, are you beyond these 24 hours? If you do not practice anything, how much do you remember from what you studied? Even spring break, this is, I have to tell you, I never give any exam to my student after spring break. Because when they come back after spring break, you say, oh my God, what happened to them? Even they tell me, I don't remember what we are talking about now. This is the same thing we talked about before you leave, because they left for a week. And most likely during spring break, everyone want to disconnect. So they didn't study. Again, science behind the learning. So if we want to fight this, we have to study within 24 hours. We have to go to Math Learning Center within 24 hours of learning a new subject. I have to do my homework within 24 hours, which doing homework, what we have in mind perhaps by doing homework, we have to talk about it today. Just doing homework, and I think I did my homework, and I think I learned, that's something we are going to talk about it today. So we have to practice within 24 hours to make sure that hopefully we can gain a lot and grow dendrite. So you mentioned that you studied before the weekend before the exam. Remember, you said you studied very hard. But remember, you were past the 24 hours. When you learn a new subject, you have to study within 24 hours to grow dendrite for that. And then practice, review, do homework, study group, going to the Math Learning Center to make sure you have a strong dendrite for that. So when you sit on the exam to take the exam, when you're recalling the information can travel and the signals can travel through the strong dendrite that you have. That's the science behind learning, how to learn and how to recall information. If I don't have any dendrite for the subject, when I'm sitting on the exam, I see some terminology that I do remember. My professor was mentioning that, but I don't know how to apply them now because I didn't study enough to grow dendrite. So we have to schedule, we have to study throughout the week to study, to review, not the night before the exam, not the weekend before the exam. Scott, do you want to add anything?
Yeah. How many of you have had a cram session before a test? Multiple hours? Yeah.
Mhm.
Do you reach a time in the middle of that where things just kind of start jumbling together? Where it's like, okay, that's like it seems like it's the same thing, but it's not. It's a different problem, but you just remembered it. I have a cram session every time. Okay. Adrian might need, I'll talk to you later. We'll get into a different setup. But I think that's what we're learning here is why does your brain struggle with having those cram sessions? They can be short-term productive. What tends to happen after a cram session is then you don't use it again and then it's gone. And by the time the next test rolls around, even though you might have remembered part of it for that first test, if you're not constantly reviewing, and we'll talk about some other strategies, it can lead you down a path where you think you might have done okay on something, but then it's gone again. So the cramming is not something that is scientifically shown to really back up the fact that you're learning for a long term. It gives you a short little burst. Doesn't usually last. I'll let Layla take it. So a couple things that you also want to look at. The reason why Layla asked not just what class you're taking, but how you're taking the class. Some of you mentioned online. I know a lot of the people when I teach this class in this type of room, I call them roomers and zoomers. So the zoomers, almost all of them are saying I'm taking an online class, right? They're saying, oh, I got an online class. As a matter of fact, I see their online teacher here in this presentation as well. So what you also want to think about is what works well for me. Throughout this pandemic, we have seen students say, I really like online classes because I can move my flexibility around, I can adjust it, I can do some studying here or there. Then what we've also seen on our side is that success rates have gone down significantly with online classes. And I think part of that is what may work best for you is you're like, oh, there's so much flexibility. There might be too much flexibility if you're taking a pure online class. Oh, I could study today. Oh, or I could study tomorrow. Whereas if you're coming in person, sometimes it's like I have to be there on those days to see what's going on in class and ask questions.
I can't stand online classes.
Can't, okay, but others may like them, but maybe are you being successful with it? Do you feel like you're really learning? So keep that in mind. What works well for you? What is the format of the course? How often does it meet? Some people prefer to meet almost every day, just give me a little bit every day. Some people prefer a couple days a week because of work schedules. Maybe the time of day also. I teach evening classes. A lot of students come in after work because they're like, I can't take it during the day, but I need to be here with someone. So think about those options. Of course, other people look at not just the instructor, but what kind of materials are available? Is it just a strict textbook? Is it an online course? What is available?
Some perks of in-person classes, a lot of times it helps me stay on track with the rest of the class. Because with online classes, I've had experiences where, wait, I'm a month behind and I didn't listen to them.
Yeah, and I also want to mention that in the previous slide was guided self-placement. So remember, students, they have to place themselves based on the information that the last high school math class that they had and the GPA, overall GPA, they placed themselves in a math class. However, I want to let you know that we have the informational page for the all math classes, so you can read about those classes before taking them. What is the prerequisite of the class? What knowledge you need to have? What are you going to read to learn in that class? So that is also, it's on our website and it's very useful.
Okay, so I'm going to jump over now to a brief talk here.
Power of yet. I heard about a high school in Chicago where students had to pass a certain number of courses to graduate, and if they didn't pass a course, they got the grade not yet. And I thought that was fantastic, because if you get a failing grade, you think, I'm nothing, I'm nowhere. But if you get the grade not yet, you understand that you're on a learning curve. It gives you a path into the future. Not yet also gave me insight into a critical event early in my career, a real turning point. I wanted to see how children coped with challenge and difficulty. So I gave 10-year-olds problems that were slightly too hard for them. Some of them reacted in a shockingly positive way. They said things like, I love a challenge, or, you know, I was hoping this would be informative. They understood that their abilities could be developed. They had what I call a growth mindset. But other students felt it was tragic, catastrophic. From their more fixed mindset perspective, their intelligence had been up for judgment, and they failed. Instead of luxuriating in the power of yet, they were gripped in the tyranny of now.
So I think the reason why Layla and I chose this particular slide and this particular video is to really help you to see that the mindset you have coming in with can impact what you get out of a course. If you come into a class, most of you don't know the material yet. That's why we're taking the class. So there will be a bit of a challenge as you learn something new. If you have a little bit of that setback, you can internalize it and say, it's me. I failed. I'm not good enough, things like that. But you can also take this new mindset idea, maybe you've heard it before, I know some of you probably have, and say, okay, I'm just not there yet. You're on a journey and I'm not all the way at the end goal yet.
Yeah, because it's not like if you fail or drop class, it's not like it's all a waste of time, because you're gonna be better the next time you take it.
Yeah, and I think that's the goal. If you look at this, even this little image that's on the screen right now, think about it. If you have some of that negative self-talk, add the word yet at the end. Seriously. And I hear this in my students. Sometimes they'll say something and I will add the word yet because they've forgotten. But I don't understand this yet. That's indicating I'm on a path to understanding it. If you stop with the first part, you're saying I'm done. I don't understand it and I can't understand it. And that's not true. Okay, this doesn't make sense yet. This is something we also encourage in the STEM learning centers. It's not about, yes, at this moment, I don't fully understand it. But you know what? That's just this moment. There's many more moments to come. So I'm going to go through a few. I am a huge Star Wars fan. Some of you might be, and if you're not, it's okay, because you're just not there yet. So what I've got here is a few little images about kind of the fixed mindset. And if you find yourself, I'm going to read the highlighted points. The slides will be available after. You can read over everything if you want to. But the fixed mindset says intelligence is static. That means it's not changing. I have it or I don't have it. Okay. So what that does is it tends to lead to a desire. You want to look smart. And maybe you've been in classes with people who it seems like they're just, oh, you want to look real smart here. That's good for you. What happens? They want to look smart. What do? They avoid a challenge because a challenge might mean they don't succeed. And if they don't succeed, they don't look smart and they want to look smart. They want to look good. They want to look professional. Maybe you even have this like, ooh, I don't want to try that new sport because I might not be good at it. The whole point is it's a new sport. You're not going to be good at it right away. What also happens? Fixed intelligence, when they encounter an obstacle, they tend to stop. They tend to give up, right? You hit the wall once, that's it.
If I may add, I also have heard many students, they go by rate my professor, they find the easiest professor that they read the comments, they find the easiest professor, but do you learn a lot in that class? Do you want to be challenged? So,
Well,
yeah, go ahead.
usually I want a teacher who is not too easy to the point where we don't even learn anything, but also not too hard to the point where we my math calculus 3 teacher that I dropped this semester kind of hard. I can study all weekend and still fail a test kind of hard. Not that
So you haven't learned yet, right? Remember, you are going to learn that concept. So it hasn't happened yet. You are going to be successful.
Yeah. I still retain some knowledge from the class. So when I take it again, I'll be better.
Perfect.
Look at that fixed mindset. I'm just going to hit the big bullet points. They tend to see the effort that you put in if you didn't succeed as fruitless. Like that was a total waste of my time. Even if they picked something up because they didn't fully succeed. They tend to also ignore criticism or useful negative feedback. When a teacher gives you feedback on an exam or something like that, it can come across to you as negative because it's like, oh, they're telling me I didn't know that. The point of it is, I'm telling you so we can make a change to improve. Okay, both Layla and I have to provide feedback on exams. And no, it's not fun telling you that you got something incorrect. But we want you to be successful. So we have to do that as a way of shaping and moving you towards the goal. And don't forget, you got a fixed mindset. You almost feel threatened. If other people are succeeding, you're like, oh, watch out. It's like it's a competition, right? Oh, there's only so many people who can win. Let's go over to the growth mindset side. Yes, of course, I've got to have Yoda here. That is Yoda, not Grogu. So all you Mandalorian fans, just hold back. Okay. So the growth mindset, what does it mean? Intelligence can be developed. I don't have to stay where I am right now. It leads to a desire to learn. And then you have these tendencies to embrace a challenge. Maybe the exam did kick your butt a little bit. That's just a challenge. You can overcome challenges. You persist in the face of a setback. What else? You see effort as mastery. I'm not going to stop just because I had a setback. You learn from criticism. And criticism doesn't have to be your bad. It doesn't mean that. Criticism is anything that is critical of what you're doing. Find lessons and inspiration in the success of others. If you're sitting next to someone and they're doing well, maybe instead of saying, oh, they really knew it, they're born with it, maybe you could ask them, hey, how are you studying for this class? What's working well for you that I might be able to take? But don't think about them as an enemy or competition. They are a resource, just like your teacher is.
In that class, like most people in my chapter 3 class struggled, but I asked a few people who did well, and they were like, "Oh, it wasn't too bad." And I was like, "What?"
Yeah. And for some people, think about it, right? Some people may find something easier than others. That's okay. But you want to look for what strategies, what are they doing? And it could be that maybe, yeah, I just took the class last term, but maybe for you it was 2 terms ago. Oh, I got to go back and refresh. So I do want to spend a bit of time on the study cycle. Layla mentioned it, and then I'll turn it back over to her. But the study cycle is something that you want to get into a rhythm with. Okay, so when students say, oh, I'm taking a class and I go home, what do? So you just got out of class. I'm going to ask a couple of you. You just got done with class, you close your book, you head out the door, and now let's say you get home and it's time to do something for the class. What do? There are some things that you do in that time at home. What are some things? What do you think?
You look in your notes that you took and you try to understand it, maybe like make little side notes of something it reminds you of or what you think of.
Okay, so review what I saw in class. If I took notes, that does mean you took notes, right? See what I'm saying? No, there's some assumptions here, right? You take notes. What about you?
Like, went over an example, and he went over it very fast, and I was kind of lost. I worked through the problem, see the steps he took one by one to make sure I fully understood.
Okay, so repeat problems if it went too quick, so that you want to make sure you understand it. And maybe during class, you felt like you were just scribbling it down as quick as you could write it, right? You didn't really understand it. Okay, that's a good one.
What I like to do is I like to take each chapter that we're doing and put all of the important stuff in one piece of paper.
Oh, so condense the material down,
So you
try to
don't
rewrite it.
So you don't have to plug pages, you can just like.
Okay.
I did the same thing as a student and I called it my review sheet or cheat sheet for that
I call
section.
them study sheets.
There you go.
Just
Yes.
And it works pretty well.
Okay. Somebody else?
What I like to do is I consider like, my school, my job. And like normally I would work, like 9 to 5. So my
Sure.
classes start at 9, but they end around like 1. So after class, I go to the cafeteria and I'll work till like 4 or 5 because I know if I go home, that's where all my hobbies are. And I'm not going to do anything productive.
Get
I'm just
distracted
stay here.
perhaps. Okay. Good. So I did have a few in the how are we supposed to study for math? So the study cycle does prepare you with some tips. If you need others, I do have a few others that are some study tips from other professors. But what I want to talk about is here's some things that have been shown to work very effectively. So how do I study? Step number 1, it starts before you go to class. Something for students. Sometimes they're like, no, I go to class and then the teacher tells me what to do. Oh, before you go to class, skim over the material. If you have a physical book, read over it. If it's an online book, skim over it. What are the ideas we're going to be talking about? Make notes about some of the big ideas. That way, when you get to class, it's not the first time you've seen it. It won't seem as foreign. But sometimes you go to class and it's like, whoa, I have no idea what they're talking about. Just write very quickly. No. Number 2, attend. Whether it's an online class where you're watching a video or a Zoom class where you're attending a Zoom session or an in-person class, it doesn't matter. You have to be present in the class. You cannot take 4 days off. You cannot take 5 days off. You have to be present in the class. I like the way you said, think about it like it's a job. You have to put time in or you get fired from your job. You got to put time in here to be successful.
I add to attend and participate. Participate in the discussions, conversation in the class, take notes, ask questions, make sure everything makes sense.
So after you've attended, you've asked questions if you have some. If you had questions after class, maybe, as you said, go to the cafeteria. You could also jump into maybe studying in the STEM center, in the Learning Center, where there's tutors available, staff are ready to support you if a question came up. But right afterwards, the closest thing you can do for what Layla said, you want to build that dendrite. You have got to do some brief review. This is about 10 to 15 minutes. Reread your notes. Fill in any gaps. Develop new questions. Maybe you thought you understood it, but you went back through it. You're like, I do not get it now. Then you start kind of a study cycle, and this is about 30 to 50 minutes. For some of you, 30 minutes is about it. You need to take a 5 or 10 minute break at the end, then do another 30-minute block. Not try to do hours of studying at a time. It is ineffective. Your brain actually cannot learn effectively. You have to have little downtime. Maybe that means I just stand up and I walk around. Maybe I log in and watch a cat video or whatever you do with the YouTube and the Twitters and you guys know what I'm talking about. I'm using all the right words. Okay, 30 to 50 minutes. This has to happen several times a week. It cannot be once a week, especially in online classes. I have a lot of students, they come to me after they do poorly and they say, what am I doing wrong? I say, I'm studying for 8 hours. I said, 8 hours in one day. It's a challenge. It's a challenge with not enough repetition. This is also a time where you might be starting to do some homework problems. None of you said you did your homework at home. I tell you what, that might be the problem. I think I'm kidding. But that's part of it. You have to do some of them to see that you understand it. And then don't forget to come back and check. The check is a big piece. Now you've done some homework problems. Pause, go back to your notes, check. Do I understand this well enough that I could explain it to somebody else? And if you're in the STEM learning centers, there's sometimes other people nearby that might even be in your same class. You'd have a chance. Hey, ask me a question. I want to see if I can understand.
I think the last part, the checking or assessing ourselves, assessing our knowledge is the part that most of students, they skip and they don't do it. That is actually very important part. When you do your homework, sometimes you look at, the textbook, the lecture notes, the material you have. So you have some help to do your homework. But in that part of the last part of the study cycle, for checking part or assessing, make sure to put away all those resources and see if you can do it on your own. Just like you're taking the exam, you don't have any resources. Are you able to answer those questions without any resource? Then you can claim that I learned this concept. And I see that Professor Beltran and Mercado also put something in the chat.
Yeah, there are a couple pieces in there talking about kind of when you're studying for a test is a little bit different than just doing homework. So making sure that you see a difference between those. Professor Beltran Aguilar said, you want to check and see, can you do the problems on your own without other resources? If you're so used to doing homework that you always watch a video and then do a problem, then you're not really learning, you're repeating. So you want to try it. Can I do it on my own? Deal with a time constraint. This is a tough one for many of you. You talked about it. Some of you nodded. That time when the clock is ticking, oh, the anxiety. What she recommends is a really good one from a psychology class. You get used to doing things under time. Even if it's homework, set a timer. I have 30 minutes to do these homeworks. The clock is ticking down. Seems silly. And you know you could just hit reset. But you watch that clock, your body starts to react in a certain way. It's a really good tip there. And then make sure that you also check yourself for both notation and correctness. Okay, some teachers, as you know, some people are, I got the right answer. Yeah, but you didn't do it the right way or you didn't write it down correctly. So that's important to think of.
Right.
Okay, turn it back to you.
Yes, so first of all, I want to mention that this is the math sequence that is posted in the mathematics, the math department website. Always check for that. This shows basically what classes we are offering, what is the prerequisite for what class, what you have to take first. Of course, we always recommend to meet with a counselor for choosing your classes you're going to take and have your educational plan. But this is the most updated math sequence that we just finished and approved and is posted online. So that's just for your information. But many times we get this question as a faculty, we hear that, why am I taking this math class? Why am I taking this class? Well, is that because I love math? Because some of you said you don't like math, right? Why should I take this class? So in addition to, of course, learning the mathematical skills and the computational skills, taking a math class teach you about the problem solving strategies, critical thinking. These two, in my opinion, doesn't matter what career you choose, There are going to be some skills that they are extremely needed to be successful in any profession. Critical thinking, problem-solving strategies. Of course, some of these courses are needed for your degree and certificates. That's why you're taking them. But in everyday life, for your career, for any project you have in mind, problem-solving strategies. Isn't that life about? Every day we have to solve problems. The type of problems are different. Maybe we are not solving the mathematical problems, but we are dealing with problems. And we need to have a problem-solving strategies to deal with it. What is critical thinking? Who can define critical thinking? We keep hearing that we need to learn critical thinking from this class, from that class that we are taking. What is that? Yes.
It's like creative new ways to solve a problem. Go beyond just what you were taught, but how can you apply this in things?
Exactly. I'm learning about this concept now. How can I apply it to another concept or something that is similar to this? Do you think when you get a job, they put a math problem in front of you and say, this is what you have to do today? Most likely that's not the case, unless you're a math teacher, right? So what the problem-solving strategies that you learn, the other concept that you learn, how do you apply it today to this problem, to this concept? And that's the critical thinking is something that we learn from most of classes that we are taking anywhere. Anything else you want to add, Scott, to that?
No, nothing. So at this point, no, thank you.
Okay, so for the next two slides, first of all, I want to say a shout out to Professor Mercado and Professor Biltan who are attending here online. They helped me for these two slides. So first of all, I want to let you know that we have the SOAR orientation, which is the Student Online Academic Readiness. How many of you, many of you are taking classes online. How many of you have attended SOAR? Any one of our student online? So SOAR presentation, first of all, is available if you want to know about the dates. They are offering these workshops, SOAR workshop throughout the semester. It's not only the beginning of the semester, so you can just find the information online in MiraCosta website. So they basically talk about the online education at MiraCosta, the resources, very good information that you need, how you need to be a successful student in an online education at MiraCosta. So I highly recommend that. However, in my opinion, teaching online for many years, your instructor is a very good resource for you. Many of them, they have videos, weekly videos, the videos for tour of the canvas, how to do your homework in this class, the calendar for the class, where to get help. All those videos, instructional videos that they post, they are extremely important. What else is very important for online education? You creating a calendar for yourself. You put time in your calendar that every day, for example, for 9 to 10, I'm going to work on watching the videos. 11 to 12, I'm going to do homework. Then I'm going to reach out to my professor and ask questions. Oh, there is discussion board. So you have to create that calendar for yourself. Even though the class is online, there are office hours. Most of faculty, they offer office hours for online classes. Make sure to go to those office hours, ask questions. Do I know how to use Canvas, Pronto? How do I communicate with my professor online, in my online class? There are many different ways of communication. Canvas, email, Pronto. What other methods you use, Professor Fallstrom?
Yeah, I think what I set up for my students, something I hope other teachers do as well, just the ability for students to jump in, set up a time and jump into Zoom with me if they're working online. We can have kind of a one-on-one And I'll meet you on campus, I'll meet you on Zoom, I'll meet you where you want to, and usually at most of the times that you can work out too.
Okay. Take organized notes. Have an organized binder. Because remember, it's an online, you have to be in charge of your education, right? You have to be in charge of your learning. Many instructors, they have their orientation video. Make sure to watch those videos.
Good, okay. So some of you mentioned the anxiety before the test. So do we still have the test?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so let's get past that. So what I want to do is talk about some of the strategies before a test, what to do during a test, then what to do after the test. I'm gonna go through these kind of quick, but again, the slides will come out to all of you who attended. We've got all your email addresses, we'll send it out. So make sure before the test, make sure you understand the material before the test starts, right? Make sure you create practice problems or exams, study with a classmate, and some pieces over here before the test, these are really stress reducers. Give yourself extra time to get to class that day. If there's traffic, you don't see it, you're already stressed before you get to the test. Okay? Plus, when a sinkhole in the middle of a freeway, right, shuts traffic down forever, right? Plan extra time. If it normally takes you 20 minutes, give yourself 35. Give yourself extra time to get to class, to breathe, to sleep well the night before, and get something to eat. Those are all critical pieces. You want to be successful.
And remember, you already have your dendrite, you studied, throughout the week, you're not studying the night before the exam, right? So we already learned about those strategies.
During the test, once the test comes out, either teachers are doing it online, right, through a Canvas shell, or they're giving you a physical printed copy. Do you have any key information? Maybe there's no notes allowed, but you remember some pieces, write them down right at the beginning. Take just a moment, write down a formula that they said you have to know this formula. Write it down at the beginning of the test, because that's when it's probably freshest in your mind. Okay, skim over the test. If you don't do this, I recommend it. Take a moment. Don't start answering right away. Take a moment and just flip through the test. Where are the big point questions? Where are some that I know I struggle with perhaps, and I know I need a little bit more time on? And then pace yourself. Because now that you know what's on the test, you can give yourself a good pace.
And if you're taking the class online, make sure to always read the announcements, right? Announcements during before the exams, the information the instructor is sharing about the exams. Make sure to always check the announcements. That's what also Professor Fallstrom just shared.
And strategies after the test. You just took the test. You know you got some right. You know you maybe didn't get all of them right. Reflect. Okay, take some time. What did I do well? What are the pieces I don't know yet? Maybe I need to review a little bit. Okay. Evaluate your study strategies as well. If you come out of that test and say, boy, I was not prepared for that, make an adjustment then. Don't do the same thing again for the next test, because we'll probably have a similar result. You can always make an appointment with your professor. You can come to me in the STEM LC. I can give you some additional test taking strategies and take time, because we want you to be successful. And back to you, Wayne. Oh, I can, yeah. So what can you do right now? Just realize this is from a psychological perspective. So there's a lot of research into something called CBT. I got to pronounce that very carefully, because it's not the other thing that's associated with. C, B as in boy, T as in taco. So CBT. So it's cognitive behavioral therapy. And the idea behind it says you can help train your brain in how to react to situations that are outside of your control. You're outside of your control when you take a test. So you may not be able to control that initial feeling you have coming in, but you can say, okay, I know why I'm doing this. I'm taking a test. That extra, my blood pressure's up, my heart's racing. All that's doing is putting blood into my brain, and that's where I need it. You can tell yourself that, and it helps reduce your stress level. I always show my students the Make Stress Your Friend TED Talk. And if you haven't watched that one, it's about 5 minutes of your life. Might change the way you approach things. It's called Make Stress Your Friend. So again, to reduce math anxiety, Layla has already talked about a lot of these. I'm just kind of reviewing them here. Realize you're not alone. The more you realize you're not alone in this journey and in this struggle that you might be having, the easier it is. Keep saying the word yet. If I see you on campus, you come up to me and say, hey, I haven't got to the STEM Learning Center yet. I get it. I'm going to say it. I'm going to smile, because I understand that's part of the process. Use the tips we provided you here today. The study cycle that we gave you means I have to do something before I get to class. I have to do something during class and I have to do something after class. There's 3 parts to it. And have a plan if you miss a day. You don't like to think about that because you don't want to miss a day. What are you going to do if you happen to miss a day? You want to take these, Lynn? Jump you over to positive self.
Positive self-talk. Professor Fallstrom said, put yet at the end of all those self-negative talk. They're going to turn to the positive talk, right? Do you agree? So on the left side, you see the self-negative talk. On the right side, you see the positive. I can do this. I can do math. Many times I've heard from students that, oh, I'm not a math person, but I've never heard from student, oh, I'm not a political science person, or I'm not a history person. Why math? Because of all the reasons that we explained at the beginning. Perhaps some bad experience, failure. I don't let my anxiety limit my choices. I learned some study skills today. I'm going to apply them. We learned about dendrite. Now I know how to study. I learned about taking classes online. Some tips for success in online education. I'm going to apply them. I'm going to be successful.
So as you think about these stressful pieces, we take some cues from our friends in psychology. You feel yourself getting stressed, you need to do something about it. You have to be active. Otherwise, it's just going to keep feeling the same way. So think about taking a few deep breaths. Let your thoughts go for a moment. I see Professor Beltran has put in the chat that she used to take a little walk before a test. Put in her earbuds and just take 15 minutes before the test, kind of calm herself down. She wouldn't talk with people. And maybe you get inside the classroom and people are talking and it makes you more anxious because they're saying, oh, it gets a little crazy right before a test. Be in charge of it, okay? You're in charge of your time. Get up and take a walk. Be real careful with that 3rd bullet point. I can't tell you how many students come to class right after they shoot a Red Bull, right after they pound some, like, I had 3 energy drinks. I'm totally ready for this test. Oh my goodness. You have just affected your brain chemistry in ways you cannot imagine, and it's going to be very challenging on that exam. So plan your studying. Take those study breaks, and I'm not kidding about that. When I see people in the STEM Learning Center, they've been there for 4 hours, I say, I need you to get up. I need you to get up. I'll watch your stuff. You go take a walk around the building and come back. But you cannot, your body will not learn well if you do that. So plan it, okay? Study for an hour and a half and then tell yourself, you know what? I got 10 minutes. I'm gonna go take a little walk. Get some fresh air. You can see the rain pouring down. Who knows? Maybe get a quick shower in because it's raining so hard. Layla, turn to you for conclusion.
And of course, always celebrate your success, right? You worked hard. You worked hard the entire semester. You studied. You were in the Math Learning Center. You achieved hopefully what you wanted to achieve. So make sure to celebrate your success and don't be afraid of failure. How many times, remember when we were, my example at the beginning, when we were learning about the bike riding, how many times we fell down, but we got up and continue and practice. So we are going to be successful and we are going to celebrate our success. That's something that we are looking forward for the end of the semester. And of course, the ultimate educational goals that we have in mind to reach to that point. Here is, the whole Zoomers. That's what we are referring to them. Thank you. I hope you found this very helpful or maybe a little helpful. But thank you so much for attending this workshop. I know that the math club is going to post it where, Melina?
On Discord and Blogger.
Okay, so hopefully you can share it with your friends in other classes and they can learn about these study skills as well.
Thank you so much for being here today. I hope you took some things away. Layla and I will stick around for a little bit if you do have additional questions. Otherwise, I understand you've got other things to do with your day. Thanks again for being here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Also, make sure to follow mcc.transfer center on Instagram. They have all kinds of updates on scholarships and ed plans and things like that.
That is in the
You
chat
can,
as
you
well.
can put it in the chat if
It
you
is.
want.
It's in the chat there as well. Right. Any other questions that might have come up? Any concerns, issues? You can, you're welcome to stick around. Otherwise, thanks for being here.
Thank you, everyone. Go ahead.
If I'm behind, like, this is not a math class, but like, if I'm behind on reading, like, meaning, I haven't done any reading at all, like,
That is behind that. Yeah.
I'm a terrible reader. Like, and your tips actually might have been helpful, like, I'm trying to read like a whole chapter in one, or at least half a chapter, I can't even do 5 pages.
So you might have to set yourself smaller goals. Maybe you have to do 3 pages, take a few notes, and then take a little bit of a break. So-
Spending too much time on too little. Or too little.
Got it.
Before it completes.
Those are the thicker paper.
Or maybe reading isn't a good method. Maybe watching videos is better.
It might, it probably is, I mean, lessons is definitely better for me than readings.
The one thing I'll also attach to the slides is what Layla, Dr. Safaralian is passing out right now. This is from a group called the Learning Scientists. This is a set of 6 different study strategies and techniques that have been shown to actually be successful. I will tell you, when you look at this, the first thing you see on the first page is called spaced practice. This is a big one. Layla's talking about dendrites, how your brain functions, how you learn. Have spaced practice. Don't try to put it all together. One on the back is called retrieval practice. You're in math classes. The thing you learn in chapter 1, you're going to need in chapter 3 and in chapter 4. So you cannot think of yourself as just, I'm going to learn it once in chapter 1 and then I don't have to go back. Retrieval practice says you have to go back and schedule some time to review chapter 1, even though you're in chapter 2 or chapter 3. So there's 6 different techniques here. They all have kind of a cute little drawing, but they show you what to do, and then they show you some of the little warnings to make sure you're doing it properly. So yeah, try some of these pieces as well for the reading part that you were describing. See, we got a few more online. Let's see here, Brian. Raphael. Yeah, go ahead.
So are you able to just go study in the STEM center? I thought you just had to have an appointment.
No appointment needed for anything. We got a whole bunch of people just come in and they just sit down and start doing their work. And that way, if there is a question, right? Boom, we have QR codes. You just scan, put yourself on the waiting list and someone's with you. Our wait times right now are less than 2 minutes on average. Good question. Hope to see you there.
I've been there before.
Yeah,
Probably be going back.
yeah. I think it's different. The cafeteria is great because the view, right? The ocean, you get to look at it. It's really pretty. But we don't have a view in ours, but we do have the tutors and the tutor staff there. So
And they have tutoring online in Zoom and in person.
that's correct. You can join us on Zoom from noon till 11 p.m. Monday through Thursday. So
And we also have drop off a question. You can't come on Zoom or in person.
you can drop a question off. We'll get back to you within 24 hours. We'll reply to your question. On the right time. Thanks for being here. Hopefully you picked up a few cool things.
I'm